It's Friday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand, happy to be back for the final show of the week, and a good one at that. Had a lot of fun talking to Star Tribune columnist Velle E. Neal III. That'll be a little bit later in the show, primarily focused on the Twins. Obviously, you guys all know Velle covered the Twins for several years at the Star Tribune, now a columnist, but still keeps very close tabs on that team. Had some good perspectives on, where they're headed right now, kind of big roster decisions that are looming ahead as they prepare for the postseason. Have not clinched yet. Cleveland did win last night, but that magic number sitting at 1. Twins could clinch as soon as tonight against the Angels at Target Field. I believe it's the first chance they've had to clinch in front of fans at Target Field since 2010. So that'd be pretty cool if they could get it done tonight on the field. But like Velle talks about with me, a lot of big decisions ahead, a lot of big questions ahead. He will give his thoughts on who would be his number 3 starter. He will give, in the playoffs, he will give his thoughts on his preferred opponent. He'll give thoughts on Royce Lewis and his ability to lead this team. So lots of good stuff there. I've got some Vikings thoughts at the end, too. And you know what? What did I miss is also some Vikings thoughts as well. I don't know why they're so front brain. They're 0-2. Sometimes the struggle brings out the best in my thoughts. But I was just thinking this week about how we tend to, in retrospect, kind of boil down the history of something into kind of one or two kind of tidy facts. And I feel like with the Vikings, we keep alluding to and bringing up, the fact that the fact that keeps getting mentioned from 2022 is the 11-0 record in one-score games, defined as games that finished up with a margin of 8 points or less. And I feel like that in essence tells you the story of 2022 and how many close games they won. It doesn't fully get to the how of it, though, and how outrageous their fortune was in 2022. Now, I'm going somewhere with this because I asked Kirk Cousins about this earlier this week, and I'll play that audio in just a minute. Just kind of like how you go from a year where everything seems to have gone right to a year now where things haven't gone their way, at least in these first couple games where they've lost 2 one-score games. But after something happens, you tend to kind of gloss over the how it happens. And when I looked back at 2022, it wasn't just the 11-0, it was how they got to 11-0, how these one-score games materialized. And it wasn't just, a few games that were, rallies or something kind of unusual happened. It was like more than half maybe of those one-score games. It wasn't like someone just scored right at the end and made it a one-score game. It was like a season, it was like 10 seasons worth of games where you're like, oh my gosh, how did they win that game? Piled into one. If you think about it, the first 2 games of the year were kind of the outliers. They beat Green Bay by 16. They lost to Philadelphia by 17. Then they play Detroit. They're down double digits in the fourth quarter, need to score and then get the ball back from Detroit, who makes some boneheaded decisions, get the ball back twice from Detroit in the final few minutes, score the go-ahead touchdown, win 28-24. Next week against the Saints, they go to London, win on the double doink kick that doesn't go in. That would have made it overtime for the Saints. The Dolphins, they get to play the Dolphins without Tua Tagovailoa, one of the best quarterbacks, one of the most exciting young quarterbacks in the league. They beat Washington after being down by double digits and got that game iced when Washington committed a silly special teams penalty towards the end. Buffalo, of course, Buffalo wouldn't have won that game if Josh Allen doesn't fumble the snap at the goal line right at the end of regulation. I mean, how bizarre was that? New England, the Jets game, they survived a goal line 3 or 4 plays from the 1 by the Jets, and then 3 or 4 more plays from the 19 in the final 2 minutes to win that game by 5. That is an underrated one that they escaped with. The Colts came back from 33-0 at halftime to win that game. The Giants, they won on a 61-yard field goal at the gun. I mean, when I look back at the point of this is not to belabor 2022. It's just to realize and remember this wasn't just 11-0. These were some of the most wacky, wild wins that I have ever witnessed, and like 6 or 7 of them came in the same season. So when we think about this kind of correction, this kind of regression to the mean, we're not just talking about statistically or record-wise. We are talking about some of the most outrageous outcomes that I can ever think of. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that this is happening. Now, this was Kirk Cousins' take on it, though. I didn't quite go through the whole litany of how they won last year, but here was his thought when I asked him about, hey, everything kind of seemed to go your way last year. It's not going your way so far this year. How do you kind of handle that within the locker room?
Well, this league, we've been on the other side of them, too, going back to 21. I mean, how many 2-minute losses did we have at the end of the game? Stuff where you're like, you got to be kidding me. So we've also been on the horrible side of them for years. And then, yes, I think we course-corrected or corrected statistically last year, probably got back to even. And so now we've tasted the challenges of when some of the breaks aren't going your way, but some of them aren't even breaks. It's just we got to play better. And so it's a small sample size right now with 2 weeks. And as the sample size grows, we've got to course correct.
Now, I thought that was a good answer, and I did appreciate how he kind of took us back to 2021 and maybe a little bit of 2020 as well when they lost a lot of games like that. And he's kind of thinking the same way a lot of us watching in the stadium or watching at home were like, oh my gosh, how did they lose that game? Did they kind of get back to even last year? I think they'd like to think that maybe all the luck evened out in 2022 and that maybe they're due for some more luck in 2023 that kind of balances out the start they've had to the season with these 2 one-score losses. I don't know what to make of it. I just know that the charmed existence they had last season wasn't just this kind of like boiled down statistic. It was how it happened. It was the outrageousness of these games. Those haven't gone their way so far this year. I mean, the Philadelphia game wasn't really outrageous, but the Tampa Bay game, everything seemed to go their way. All the turnovers piling up on them right now. We will see. I think this Sunday's game will kind of tell us if they have some of that good fortune from 2022 still in their back pocket, or if it's back to 2021 and the hard times ahead.
Grand Casino would like to take a moment and salute the true football fan. The passion, the hope, the anticipation, that incomparable feeling of winning. Grand Casino would also like to take a moment to remind you that you can find all that anticipation, thrill, and winning at Grand Casino. Grand Casino, let your story begin.
Let's get Velle E. Neal III in here right now to talk a bunch of things, but primarily Twins and Vikings. Velle, Twins. We were just saying before we started recording, Velle, this went from an AL Central race that they were comfortably ahead of to one that seemed like a foregone conclusion to one that was out of reach. It felt like it just happened in like 2 weeks. All of a sudden, it went from like, hey, they're probably going to win this to, yeah, no way do they not win this. How did this happen, Velle? In your estimation, what drove this team? And you feel free to say the lousy competition was a main driver, but what drove this team to the success it's had so far?
Well, I just think as they got a little healthier, Royce Lewis, who may be the best player, we have to throw that in the conversation. He may be the best Twin right now. Getting into the lineup and injecting some offense into that order. Remember, May or June, I was sitting here with you going, I don't think Rocco knows what his best lineup is. He didn't have a number 3 hitter. He didn't have a number 1 hitter. Correa was hitting so poorly, like he was batting 3rd by default. I'm like, he should be batting 6th. Now Lewis has been able to handle the 3 spot. Julian's been able to lead off. He's been able to put together a workable lineup. He's got a line for lefties. He's got a line for righties. And like I said, I think Lewis getting healthy and joining this mix, man, has been a huge boost.
Yeah.
I don't know what the local media is going to do for the Diamond Awards, but when you think about most valuable Twin, who's it going to be? You can't put Correa's name down.
No.
You may say as soon as Lewis got in the lineup, things changed for the better. So that's a big one. The pitching staff is actually, and the Twins are right, mid-season when the staff was like leading the league in like 6-inning outings and things like that. We're expecting a correction. So we got to get our offense figured out. When they got their offense figured out, you still got a good 1-2 punch in Lopez and Sonny Gray. The issue's been the bullpen that's kind of been shaky because of injuries and Jorge Lopez had needed to be traded and things like that. So the correction did happen, and he's been able to handle it, man. The offense, and I'll put Julian and Kirilloff in that group too. Those guys have saved this offense's bacon, and I think you felt better about offense from a day-to-day standpoint. And they were able to have a lot of stretches where they went 6-4 and 7-3. They lose a couple games, but they win 3 or 4. And the next thing you know, this magic number went from like 8 down to 1. It seemed
was fast.
Like 3-4 days.
It was fast.
And that's what happens though when 3 straight wins by the Twins, 3 straight consecutive losses by the Guardians. That's 6 in the elimination column.
Right.
So now by the time this airs, the Twins may be able to pop their sparkling water to celebrate an AL Central title.
Lavelle,
champagne.
Finish this sentence for me because I've been having a hard time filling in this blank. Royce Lewis is the Twins' best leader, and I think leadership maybe is a little bit overrated or hard to define sometimes, but I see a lot of leadership qualities in him. Just leading by example. Hit the grand slams are leadership when you get a big hit in a big spot, but it's also your infectious energy. I see it from him this early, this young. He is their best leader since blank. Since who were the leaders on previous teams? Wow.
Well, I mean, Torrey Hunter was a spiritual leader for the Twins for several years when he was around, so he's in that group. After that, I wasn't around in 87 and 91, but man, I would have to imagine that Kirby Puckett was the guiding light for those squads. I think they were rudderless in most of the 90s, right? Because after they won in 91, 92 went haywire, and then they basically became the Dust Bowl, right? Because 93 to 97 was a big gap there, the Marty Cordoba years, Knobloch, who's not a leader, they didn't get right until like 98, 99. So I would say there's 2 guys before Lewis, and that's Torrey Hunter and that's Kirby Puckett.
Am I overstating his impact when I put him in that territory after just a handful of major league games, or do you see that in him too?
I think he's the most charismatic guy since Puck. When you have veteran guys, like generally thrilled to have him around, that says something about the person. He's able to articulate the game. When the Twins offense was just crap for most of the first half, he's the one saying, with 2 strikes, man, I just got to look to hit it to opposite field.
Yeah.
There's a lot of green grass out there. A veteran should be saying that. It shouldn't be a guy who's only played at the time, he's only played like in 45 major league games.
Yeah.
So he's got the it factor. And, and I, wrote about the decision to take Lewis over Hunter Green. I think the character and charisma was a big factor in that decision. Plus, I thought Green was a thrower. And I'm like, well, he is a high school kid. Maybe you could teach him how to pitch, He looks damn good for the.
He looked pretty good the other day.
Yeah,
he's looked pretty good.
He's touching 99. He pitches up in the strike zone a lot. I don't know. That's by design. And when his fastball's down in the zone, it's got better movement. So he's got some tools, man. He's gonna be something to reckon with here going forward. But at this point, it's a Tarzan versus Flash Gordon argument. Which one would you rather have, in Lewis and Green?
I love it.
And it's funny because this is the second time the Twins been through this. They had a chance to take a picture and Mark Pry, and they took Joe Mauer. They had a chance to take a frontline starter because that's all we've been whining about here for years is that the Twins don't have an ace. Yeah. They could have solved that by taking Green in 2017. Nope, they took Lewis. So that's 2 instances where they went the other way.
It is. Although the trade they made with the Arise Lopez trade, and I don't know if you'd say Lopez is an ace yet, but that one at least went the other way.
Yeah, it did.
Offense for pitching.
It sure did. And I think both teams are happy. I mean, Arias had everybody enthralled because he was batting .400 for the first 2-3 months of the season. But Lopez is what the Twins needed, and I can't fault them for making those moves. I'm still arguing with fans. I've got emails yesterday because they were mad at my column talking about you got ripping for the Molly trade. I was like, I would have made that trade. Who knew that Molly was going to break down? I would have made that trade in a heartbeat. They needed starting pitching, and it's worked out. You think about that. Think about this rotation. Despite Molly breaking down and Chris Paddock having a Tommy John surgery, the rotation still has been like the best part about the squad this year.
Yeah, it is. Given all that, I mean, and just how they've surged lately, I think they're 10 games over 500 since the All-Star break, so they're definitely playing better. Yeah, Phil Miller and I think talked last week about how a team with, that is on the verge of the postseason he can't remember a Twins team that was on the verge of the postseason yet still had so many unresolved questions going into the postseason. Who's your third starter in a playoff game? Who's even going to be on the roster, because you've got a lot of decisions to make. Some of these are rookies and young players have emerged. Some guys are hurt, trying to get back. What do you need to see in these last, handful of games, even if they don't matter all that much in the standings?
Health. That's a big thing right now. Royce Lewis and the hamstring, you want that quieted down. They're almost at the point right now where they could just sit some guys on ice here and let them heal up, with the magic number being at 1 at the time of this recording. Carlos Correa and his plantar fasciitis. I'm very, very concerned about that. The Twins seem to be confident he's going to be back before the end of the year. Historically, the Twins have understated injuries, and they end up being worse than they originally are.
Yes.
I've covered – this town has had several plantar fasciitis issues. You go back to Wally Zerbiak, Michael Williams, Kevin Williams of the Vikings, Randy Moss. Shannon Stewart missed 50 games because of plantar. I actually texted because I was thinking about I was thinking about writing a column about plantar, and I texted Shannon Stewart, whose number still works.
Nice.
He lives in South Florida.
Okay.
I texted Stewart and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about writing a plantar fasciitis column because Carlos Correa has it." He says, "I got everything you need to know about plantar fasciitis."
I bet he does.
Yeah.
I bet he does.
So the thing about that too, it's an overuse injury, and usually you have to stay off the foot. He played with it, which I think was pretty remarkable. Now the fact that I guess he said he heard it pop or something,
isn't that's supposed to be good, right? Which is weird.
It could be a tear too. It could be a tear. So, but any type of strain involves some sort of tearing too. But
yes,
that's the one thing I'm worried about. And can it get shot up again? Before the season's over. So I'm curious about that. Who's going to get healthy? Is Chris Paddock actually going to be in a position to help this bullpen out? I'll be stunned. Brock Stewart is a big X factor. He looked really good when called up at the beginning of the year. It looked like one of the livest arms in the bullpen. Talking about this makes me want to go watch St. Paul play tonight because, not many people. I found out last night Buxton's playing tonight in St. Paul.
Oh, wow.
So that's the big development there.
Okay.
He is going to be in the lineup for the Saints. I got to check and see what time that game is. As he tries to prove that he can be part of the team and play outfield.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on in terms of health. There's a couple of the guys there too. I'm forgetting that that are trying to get healthy as well. So, no, Joey Gallo, I believe. There's like 4 or 5 guys at St. Paul right now who are fighting to get on the postseason roster, and that's going to be interesting to watch over the last 10 games of the regular season.
Who's your number 3 starter right now? I mean, it's Lopez and Gray are obviously 1 and 2 as long as they're healthy and ready to go, which there's no indication they wouldn't be. Who's your number 3 right now?
As much as Kenta is going to be mad about this because this is not the way he wanted to be treated going back to the Dodgers day, but he's been effective coming out of the bullpen in the past. He's been effective in the postseason pitching out of the bullpen. I would start Joe Ryan in the third game and have Maeda coming in at the first sign of trouble. That would be my preference there instead of the other way around. So Ryan's last couple starts are going to be important too to see if he's got everything calibrated, for a postseason run. After that, I have Maeda ready to go. I had Keiko in the bullpen. Right now, Louis Varland factors as like the 8th inning guy. I don't want, as much as I've supported Pagan during the season when people wanted to run out of town, I don't want to see him in the 8th inning in a postseason game. I'd rather see him in the 6th or 7th. Same thing with Griffin Jacks. Varland's going to loom here as the main. The problem with Varland is back-to-back outings. So that's something he's not used to doing a lot. Can he pitch in games 1 and 2 or 2 and 3?
Nice thing about him is he can throw multiple innings. So you can trade that for, if you can have him for 1 game but 2 innings, maybe it's better than just 2 games for 1 inning each.
So Brock Stewart getting healthy is huge. I think he's touching 98 over there. Him getting healthy and helping out is going to be a factor. Bailey Ober too coming out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Could be a plus too as well. So, all of a sudden it's gotten a little. I thought the bullpen was in a good situation at the beginning of the year. Or Alcala, forgot about Alcala. Yeah. He's at St. Paul too.
Right. I mean, look at all the questions. Like I don't. by the way, I don't think Keuchel's on the postseason roster. At least not the wild card roster.
We'll see. Yeah, that's going to be a stretch there. Especially because they'll probably need 12 pitches instead of 13. So who's going to be lopped off there? So. he's definitely a bubble guy. I'm sure he's not happy to hear that, but he's been okay, actually. He's had a couple of hiccups, but he has a couple of really impressive outings where he gets the ground ball outs and he can tear through a batting order. Opponent matters too, I would imagine.
Yes.
I'm trying to think, is it better to fire off a Keuchel bullet against the Rangers or against the Mariners? It's hard for me to figure out right now. So those are a lot of things that new father Rocco Baldelli will have to determine here the next week and a half.
Mariners are the preferred opponent, I think. All these teams are good. All of them will probably finish with a better record than the Twins, but the Twins will have all three of those games at Target Field. I mean, it's a reasonable chance of advancing. I think they would probably be like a slight series underdog, but not by much, I wouldn't think.
At the worst, they're breaking the 18-game postseason losing streak. It's going to end.
Okay, listen to you.
Yeah,
okay, bold.
It's over. This team's good enough to win a damn playoff game. We don't have to rely on luck or some circumstance. They're not playing the Yankees like they did so many times. This is their chance to end this drought that has plagued it's generations now. There's a generation of Twins fans who have not seen them win a postseason game. Because this goes back to Ron Gardenhire through Molitor and now into Rocco. That's 3 administrations. So something's got to give here. I think this is the year that they break it.
I think so too. I think they're in a good position. I think, in a strange way, the extra round helps them with that, though it doesn't help them with an ultimate goal of a World Series because you've got to go through one extra round. But, winning the division as the third division winner does give you a favorable wild card matchup, and we'll see if they can take advantage of that. Lavelle, let's move on to the Vikings here because I talked about this on Thursday's show just by myself. The moves this week, while I agree with them, signing Dalton Risner, trading for Cam Akers, I get it. I know why they did it. It also feels desperate and like it's an admission that the plan at the start of the year wasn't very good.
Yeah, I think it's an act of desperation. I think they tried to talk themselves into believing that the running back room was going to be strong this year, giving the rock to Alexander Madison. I liked a couple of things I saw from Ty Chandler during the preseason games. I thought he could help out, but that hasn't materialized as much. But it didn't cost them that much. It cost them what? No. They flipped a 6 and got a 7th in return or something like that.
Yeah, for Akers.
For Akers. And Akers, he's had moments in the NFL when he's been fairly decent. So they got options here. I'm curious to see how much he's used right off the bat and what's the plan for. Is it going to be a timeshare now with both those guys? Is it still Madison 1 with Akers getting 30% of the load, more 50-50? Curious to see how that's going to work out. But they were so sure that they could move on from Dalvin Cook and not having a viable plan B. It's going to be something that they're going to rue. They had a chance to sign someone like Donta Foreman, who has started in this league, but he signed with the Bears instead. They had a chance to. They could have drafted a running back. You could find some small, obscure school and find the next Pacheco or someone. Pacheco ran for Rutgers. So that wasn't a small, tiny Division I school. But yeah, they could have attacked this differently. Just saying, you go on Dalvin, you sign with someone else, and we are going to do well without you because that's not what's happened. And the offensive line's a mess too.
Sorry about your Bears, by the way.
Oh, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. I could easily see
what happened to the defensive coordinator. Why is he gone?
It's a mystery. It's one of the oddest. People who have covered that team for years said yesterday was one of the strangest days in Bears history because Justin Fields had to call 2 press conferences. The first one when he was talking about what could be the problem, he used the word, well, it could be coaching. And then everybody ran to social media with Fields' problem with the offense, coaching. So they have a second press conference to clarify what he meant in the first press conference. Meanwhile, the Allen Williams situation went haywire. There was goofy reports that his house had been raided and Hallis Hall had been raided. And Charles Tillman, who is actually with the FBI now, was part of the raid. Stuff was going. It was just flying all out there until his agent came out and said, no, he's got a health issue. He's got a family problem. He's going to take a step back and take care of this. But it's crazy. And the starting left tackle, Braxton Jones, was quietly put on IR. And there's a chance he could be out for several weeks with a neck issue. So all this went on yesterday. And I'm looking at this team now. They're about to play the Chiefs. there's a small chance that we're going to start 0-5. And now instead of thinking they could go 7-10 this year and show signs of improvement, now I'm worried about another 3-14 season, and then we're definitely drafting a quarterback in the first round next year, because that means that Justin Fields' experiment has not worked out. So,
what's your concern level with Fields in general? Because I thought this was supposed to be the year he took a step forward. Is it the garbage around him, or is he just not the guy?
I'm worried that he's not the guy. The thing now is that it looks like he's thinking too much now. He's not playing freely. I think he's trying so hard to prove that he can throw out of the pocket that he's not letting the game flow dictate what he does. He also alluded to the all the stuff he's being told from different people. His voice is in his head. He's kind of cluttered and everything. So it's not good right now. He needs to free his mind so his talent can follow, and it's not happening. And it's too bad. I love his arm. I love his ability to run the ball. He could be another Jalen Hurts type guy, but he's missing open receivers. He's not throwing guys open. He's standing back there trying to hold the ball because he's been told this is your number one option here, while other guys are open. So he's not scanning the field. It just isn't clicking, man. So I don't know. Hopefully he just kind of turns around, because like last year, second half of the season was much better than the first half.
Yeah.
Once they kind of tailored offense to him, he's not even running not even dialing up any runs for him.
Makes no sense. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. But the Vikes are in a much better situation than the Bears, although the Vikes have some concerns going into this must-win game against the San Diego Chargers. It is a must-win.
It is. Before I get to that, I wanted to circle back something you just said about Fields. Wasn't that the notion of too many people in his head, not letting the game come to him? That kind of feels like early Buxton to me, where he was just listening to too many people and he didn't let the game, didn't let his natural talent through. Am I onto something there? And maybe still hope?
No, you're exactly right. Buck was, a lot of people were talking to Buck about his hit, and then basically he said, screw this, I'm going to just go about this my own way. And that's when he had the big jump up in talent. Torrey Hunter went through that too. Remember, he could hit a curveball. Yeah. He was frustrated, went down to AAA with Bill Springman and got his mind, basically got his brain recalibrated and came back a different guy. It happens. There are seminal moments during a career where the light bulb goes on, or two light bulbs turn off, and you can start to figure out what you are as a player and how you can put your best talent on the field. And Buxton went through that, and Fields is at that point too.
We joke, but this really is. It feels like must win. You start 0-3 in the NFL, your chances of making the playoffs are like 2%. It really is, even with the extra round, even with the extra team now that they give them the 7 in each conference. I mean, if they win, then it's like, okay, slow start, but they're 1-2. It's a bad division. Anything can happen. If they're 0-3, everything that I've been thinking about and fans have been whispering about and writing about on the comments and StarTribune.com, like, hey, they could be 2-6 at the trade deadline. What happens then? Like, what if, who gets traded? Does it become a full scale rebuild? 0-3 gets you a lot closer to that conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Does Cousins end up with the Jets?
Yeah, which is viable. People say it's not. It is. It's viable.
If I'm the Jets, I'm circling like vultures around the Vikings right now. I'll have all my scouts there and waiting to see if they decide to pull the plug after 5 games, because Justin Herbert's no slouch. Keenan Allen's a really good wide receiver. They got a running game. It's going to be it's probably maybe one of the. Let's see that, because it plays well. Yeah, I mean, Brian Flores trying to scheme for that offense. It's going to be a big challenge, man. And we haven't seen signs that the defense is much better than it was a year ago either. Caleb Evans, who I'm a big supporter of, just got blown past him by Devonta Smith on the touchdown run. I know he was looking for help there, but man, he had no shot as soon as the ball was snapped. The way he played that, it was like he was just a pylon that Smith ran around on the way to the end zone, and little things like that. Pass rush. Are you happy with the linebackers? There's so many things going on right now.
Who's a name brand on defense aside from Danielle Hunter?
Is Harrison Smith still in that group?
Yeah, but he's in his 12th year. Like, I think he's still a good player, but he's definitely a name brand. But I don't think he's that guy anymore.
No, and here's the other thing too, Mike. I don't think they've adequately replaced Dalvin Tomlinson either.
No, certainly
on that line.
I think Harrison Phillips is good, but he's not Dalvin Tomlinson. They don't have the defense. They don't have anywhere near the defense they had in 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah, and it's going on 3-4 years now that the Vikings have had a poor defense. They ranked near the bottom third for sure, and the bottom 10% the last couple of years in yards allowed and things like that. So in scoring defense. So it's quite a concern here. This does not look like the 13-4 team from a year ago. And that's the other thing too. And Paul Allen and I disagreed on this because he was like, it's an easy take to say that they're not going to win all the one-score games they did last year. I said, well, Paul, you guys went 11-0 in one-score games. That was a historic season. If you make history, that doesn't mean history is sustainable.
Well, and even if you're good at it, even if you're like 7-4 in one-score games this year, it means you're going to be 9-8.
Yeah, exactly. So there was going to be a drop-off. I mean, you're not going to have games like the Indianapolis Colts game every year. It's just not.
No.
So it's crazy, man. It's a lot of stuff on the line here. And fortunately, while people are always happy that football season's starting so they can get their minds off the Twins, well, now the fact that the Twins are going to the postseason may be a reason for them to get their minds off the Vikings.
I know. It's fun the years where they're both relevant. It's terrible the years where the Vikings start poorly and the Twins are out of it. It's really fun when they're both good, but they definitely, one takes the heat off the other more often than not. And this year, I think the Twins are taking the heat off the Vikings.
Yes, indeed. I think I agree with you that they're serving a purpose for the community now to keep the community sane and avoid them throwing their Vikings flags out on the 494. That's my favorite thing about living here. Whenever the Vikings are going bad, you'll see like a Vikings flag lying out on 494. Somewhere driving to the Mall of America.
Saw about 10,000 of them outside the Metrodome in 1998 after that botched NFC title game. You'll never see more than that. Lavelle, appreciate it as always. Hope your Bears find a little something this weekend, but I'm not holding my breath.
We'll see, man. I'm not optimistic right now.
The Vikings no worse than third in this division this year, I believe.
There you go. They can't do any worse.
All right, we will be later.
Take care. Bye.
Couple of postscripts from my conversation with Lavelle. Let's throw those in the cooler as we finish up today's show. Byron Buxton did indeed play for the Saints on Thursday. DH'd, went 1 for 4 with an RBI, 2 strikeouts in the Saints 4-2 win over Toledo. So he did play. He got pinch ran for in the 7th inning, looks like. Maybe after his hit, I would assume. Probably after his hit, because you don't get pinch run for after 2 strikeouts and another out. That would be a little bit silly. An okay game for Byron. We'll see how his health is. Also, I was going to make a point to mention on my segment with Lavelle that Vidarian Lowe, the tackle the Vikings traded to the Patriots before the season, played 74 snaps for New England, started and played 74 snaps, might have come in handy depth-wise had the Vikings held on to him. He played 74 snaps in a loss against the Dolphins, although I did look up his PFF grade, wasn't great, was right in the Oli Udo territory, so maybe not a ton lost there overall, even if it would have been nice to have another healthy body as the Vikings try to scramble and patch together the offensive line, rinse, repeat, 2023, and it's been like that for many, many years in the past. That will do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed everything this week. Should be a fun set of shows next week. Royce with me on Monday. Plenty to talk about there, I'm sure. Quite likely a Twins clinch over the weekend. Vikings huge game against the Chargers, Gophers, Northwestern. Wild have their first preseason game on Sunday. Wolves are starting up soon. It is the Convergence. Enjoy it all, everybody. Back at it again on Monday.